Hey, everybody, and thank you for joining us here on the Secure After Dark podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Tanner, hanging out here with Skypirate. He's somebody I found on social media who's been doing some really cool stuff, and I thought, hey, let's bring him on and chat with him and everything. So you teach kind of covert entry classes. Just you want to tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I'm going to go by Skypirate just on this, but anyone that does, even in my come of research on any of my pages, are going to find out my real name. So my real name is Marcus. So I'm currently in the Army, staff sergeant. I'm a foreign weapons instructor by day, covert instructor by night. I co-own a company on the outside called Cloaked Entry Co. We teach non-destructive entry and covert / surreptitious entry. The crowd that we kind of cater to everyone. So the thing that kind of changes is the context and how the skill is used versus like the actual skill itself. The skill itself doesn't really change that much across the board, but how it's applied does. So when we teach the prepared citizen, we teach military, we teach law enforcement, uh, first responders, you name it, we teach it. So
Right
hopefully that
on,
was
man. Yeah. No, I think it's awesome, and I love that I've been seeing some of that stuff popping up. As a having a background as a physical pen tester and kind of a red teamer, it's like it's always been this enigma to people. And a lot of the stuff, I'm like, dude, just go buy some lockpicks. You just get a traveling hook. You can pop that door. You don't even need to pick it. Like, trying to teach people this stuff. So how did you get into, you know, physical security, and how kind of how what's the path that brought you here?
so I've been now in the infantry for about a decade now. So my job back in the day, back when I was a little bit younger, I was a breacher along with being like a grenadier. So like breaching with shotguns, forcible entry, that stuff I already did. So this was kind of like a natural progression, I'd like to say.
I get
So I
to
was,
do none of that, and it's not fair.
it's okay. It's like ballistic breaching is super fun.
Oh
The
my God, I can only
um
imagine.
the forcible entry, it can get kind of dangerous if you don't get like some actual training with it because you can get hurt pretty
Right.
easy. Like shit, I
Makes
think
sense.
I just did a refresher with a fire department probably no more than 3 months ago. And while we were banging on these doors, I got caught by one of the tools and it slipped my arm down to like some pretty deep meat, like white meat. So
Dang.
it's like it's that easy. Like the forcible stuff can be kind of dangerous if you're not like wearing PPE and stuff like that. So you should definitely always do that. But as far as the covert side goes, it actually started off as a hobby. So myself and my wife, we were kind of like in between places, and we something we kind of took up, and she actually ended up getting it before I did. So she actually picked up this. She picked up picking before I did. And it was on a clear lock. It was something we found at like a gun show, and I was like, what the, me, like men want to figure things out like the hard way. I could have gone to YouTube and gotten some
Right.
stuff. And I was like, you know what? No, I want to learn myself. So she just went on YouTube. She's like, I'm just gonna look it up. And she ended up figuring it out. And so I was like, how'd you do that? And then pretty much like went off the deep end from there. Like I think I went to Walmart that same night and bought like 7 locks. And I just brought them back. And I was just banging away on them. And then I kind of became like known as like the guy for that stuff for my job. So the
Okay.
military in general is absolutely terrible at key control. Terrible. So like people lose
You're
keys
not the
and shit
first
and get
person to tell me that.
yeah, bro, it's bad. So people lose keys and get locked out of stuff nonstop. So like I was getting like no shit, like hundreds of reps, like I would say like biannually. Like it just dudes getting knocked out like left and right. Little privates for getting their keys and stuff like that. And it's just like, damn, dude. Like so I was getting a lot of reps on like I don't want to say I don't know if I would consider American 5200s intermediate locks. Maybe the old
I,
5200s,
I
not the
would
new.
I would say so.
You think so?
Most locks are really bad.
Yeah.
So I feel like intermediate is actually a pretty low bar. So
Yeah,
I would say
yeah.
so.
So I got lots of reps on that, and pretty much the only thing you only see like three kinds of locks. You either see a master lock, you'll see American lock, or you'll see like SFICs. So SFICs, small format, interchangeable cores. That is not a beginner lock in the slightest. So
I'm not sure that I've ran into any actually.
Really?
Yeah,
Dude,
I'm
it's
not
like
sure.
all
Maybe
I
I
run
have.
into.
I'm not sure. Really?
Well, like Falcon, Best,
Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, sorry. Yes,
yeah,
yeah, absolutely. Tons and tons of best locks.
tons of those.
I
Yeah, I'm about to say they're
I
everywhere.
bought all the best leashes. So we have a key cutter in the office, and like, yeah, absolutely. Had to get all the leashes for best so we could clone those. And yeah, yeah. That was I think it was actually best locks that we ran into that were kind of our segue for us getting the key cutter and like going that route. And that was definitely a cool level up. You know,
So I'm sorry.
sorry, go ahead.
So I'm curious. So you say so I have leashes for the Best lock, but they only work for the A keyways.
Yeah. Um,
So
trying to think. We have a bag of leashes. Um, I know the first ones we bought them. I know it was for a customer that had best, and that was about the time that people started finding out about the leashes that they started making their way to the U.S. Because from my understanding, they were around overseas before they ever made it to the U.S. for quite a while.
yeah.
Um, so they started popping up here, and I was like, "Oh crap, we got to try one of these." Because to be honest, some of those locks are hard. Like
Oh
some of
yeah.
those are a pain in the ass. And so we picked one up, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is easy." Um, I'm trying to remember if we just have the one best keyway. I know in our key cutter right now we have best and Schlage SC4 in our key cutter,
Yeah.
and I can't remember what the best lock is. It may need an A keyway.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Because
it's a lot to
another.
keep up with.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is something I dive into like because it's my second job. So
Yeah, right.
I know for the Best keyway, I know it's the A keyway, and they have the B2-6 and B2-7. And those are for 6 and 7 pins, and I know those are just for the A keyway. I wish there were more keyways that it was available for, because obviously Best has like 16 different keyway configurations. So
Yes, we
um,
have definitely ran into locks where we did not have leashes for them for best locks. 100%,
yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
those are. I was actually surprised at how nasty some of the best locks can get. I was kind of
oh
impressed as
yeah,
well.
oh
Like I
yeah,
would put some of them. Like I've ran into like some ass alloy, and a lot of the times. So it's funny in physical pen testing. What I actually usually tell my dudes, because I run a team, is I'm like, if you're lockpicking, you're probably in a bad spot unless it's like a padlock or something like that. Like I have never claimed to be a great lock picker by any means. Not. There's lock sport guys who do these challenge locks. And like, dude, I encounter something like that, I'm gonna find an easier way. Like I'm just not. That's not me. Like if I could, typically. Well, there's some reasons why, in my opinion, and we may even have different opinions on this. But if you're picking a lock, a lot of people know what that looks like. And so they're like, okay, what is this guy doing? He's clearly doing something weird. He's kind of maybe questionable in what he's doing. As opposed to if I can take a piece of plastic out of my back pocket and shim a
yeah,
door a whole lot quicker, nobody even notices what I did. Or if I can just take a traveler hook and hit that latch, like if the dead latch is never engaged, you don't need to worry about picking a lock. Sure, there are instances where you have to pick, but I usually tell people like you're probably in a bad spot. It's not an ideal scenario to be in where you can get caught. Doing engagements like at night, I feel like it's a little bit easier. You're where you have kind of a little bit of a cloak of darkness. You don't have to worry about like people there. I would say cameras, but to be honest, nobody watches cameras most of the time. That's one thing I've learned. It's like I I've done I've popped so many locks directly under a camera, or
Jesus
using a
Christ, man,
using a gate tool directly, and I'm like, what's the
that's
chances?
bold.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, well, whenever I'm breaking into stuff, it's usually less risk than you. I risk getting in trouble and having to show them a letter that says, "Hey, I'm allowed to do this."
Yes,
Like
right.
like in armed forces, you might, I don't know what it depends on your mission, of course, but like you might risk dying. That's a much bigger concern. So
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, like the context portion is huge.
right.
Unless I have absolute surprise, and once this is also another thing, I usually would avoid doing that if I knew there are guns behind a door and people know we're coming. So,
Right.
as an infantryman, covert entry isn't something we apply. I mean, even in the soft realm, like it's very rare for those guys to apply covert entry to an active situation. I'd say it almost never happens unless you're up at the tier 1 level. I know there's guys over that probably don't even have unit names that do stuff like that.
That makes sense. Like Delta
So,
type stuff or whatever.
yeah, or once again, there are some SMUs that don't even have like real names. So yeah, I would say it's um so me doing it, I do it for totally different reasons. So I think the last time I used it, it was probably a few years back, probably about 3 years ago. And it was because we were getting targeted indirectly, but the ordinance was getting closer and closer where we were sleeping. So we were just like, you know what, we're gonna move out of the area at night, so we're not near any, so they don't get lucky, essentially. So we were just like, all right, cool. We're going to go find an abandoned building. We're going to break in and then we're just going to stay there overnight and then like patrol back in the morning. So I was like, well, that makes a lot more sense. I was like, let's just do that. So I carried my bolt cutters on my back. And then obviously I can pick, I can bypass and all that shit. So I was like, that's too easy. So as far as like on the, the CONUS side, I hear this all the time. I hear a lot of times from pen testers, and I was like, I've taken a little bit of I won't say I've taken a problem. I've heard it from Deviant. I've heard it from Rob Pigner and stuff like. I've heard it from a bunch of guys in like kind of like the red team space.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, oh, if you're picking, you're in a really bad spot. I was like, well, not if you're good at it. So
no, that's fair. That's fair.
I think it's one of those things where when we teach our courses, like the first like half a day is nothing but picking. Everything after that is straight bypass, decode, key generation, creation of your own tools, problem solving. So we dive into the picking portion because obviously it takes the most to get good at. As far as your bypasses go, it really takes a couple of things. It takes recognizing that the bypass is even available for use, and then having the right tool. And then obviously you can kind of dive into a little bit more with like small fixes and stuff like that to almost guarantee your success. But outside of that, I'm like, you know what? Like my picking skill, since I'm actually good at it, has been nice to be able to fall back on. And I agree. Like picking is not going to be my go-to. It usually depends on what I'm doing. If I'm doing a lockout for a friend, I can just rake I can just rake a lock and be done. Or I'll rake it in the wrong way and then plug spin it, which is one of my favorite techniques. Rake it the wrong way, plug spin it, and I'm done. Like it's super quick. So and I also use it like for the surreptitious side, right? Obviously we know that there's a difference between covert and surreptitious. But being able to pick it the wrong way, I'll pop my leashy in, grab the bidding, go to the, go under, like maybe in a dark truck or something like that, cut a key real quick under Redlands and then have a key for that door for repeat use. So like all like the surreptitious stuff is like vastly different from because you're going into forensics for the surreptitious side, because that's the only thing that really separates covert and surreptitious entry in the first place is like, all right, cool. Well, are you leaving evidence behind? And the people that you're conducting this attack against, do they have trained enough eyes to even understand that there's been a covert attack that's been applied here? And it depends on who you're doing this against. Your standard gang or some shit like that. No, I have no idea, dude. They just know it's a lock. You use a key and it works. So
same thing with most corporations.
Yeah, most corporations, same thing. Like most people aren't smart enough to understand the intricacies of what surreptitious entry actually looks like and what, but the guys that do, like if let's say I pick the lock or something like that and some super good locksmith comes in, he might be able to tell that this lock's been picked, but the thing is he's missing the data of when the attack actually occurred. So he's like, oh yeah, this has definitely been picked. Like the pins are showing scarring. That makes sense. I couldn't tell you when it happened.
For sure.
So
yeah, and that's also an interesting thing where as physical pen testers, what we're doing that differs is sometimes we're trying to make people know that we're there. Almost always, actually. Where I'm going in and I have some kind of an objective where I'm going to go in and maybe it's as simple as leave a business card, right? Go leave a business card here and there. Everywhere you get, leave a business card. Cool. Whatever. We do that all the time. Maybe it's go implant a Dropbox and have, our red teamers start trying to, pop shells on stuff and get going from there. And like, those are honestly the most fun. But because it's way more fun. Breaking into a bank is a whole lot of fun, but it's a lot more fun to keep going. Like,
Yeah.
so,
Oh
but
man.
but yeah, we're usually trying to leave something behind. We're trying to give people examples, figure stuff out. And I mean, I kind of had some bullet points, but fuck it. Um, what a lot of the what a lot of what we do is we'll do like we'll throw three dudes at most of our physicals. Depends on everything's different, but it's usually going to be like we'll do a high, medium, low skilled attack, where the high skilled attack is like somebody's coming in very social engineering focused, right? Somebody's got to come in and go, okay, I have, like, for example, I did HVAC in a prior life, and I can talk HVAC. I could start fixing your shit if you want me to. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
so so I still got my uniform, throw that on. I got my gauges, I got my tools, I'll print off a work order. I got my fake website. Everything matches. Everything's good. Cool. I'll go in like that. That's like a high skill. A medium skill is like I have the name of a local IT company and I have a polo with their logo. And I'm going to walk in and I'm going to try and use that. And then the low skill is like, this guy's probably not supposed to be here. He just walked in off the street.
Yeah.
And our low skill has the highest success rate.
Oh man.
All
Dude.
of the success rates are pretty high, to be honest with you. I think we're like over 90% on all total, but the low is like a couple times
I
in
think that's
years.
saying more about the industry than anything.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's like
That's
if I'm walking
wild.
up the street, I'll wear a polo and some khakis. I got a computer
Yeah.
bag. I walk in, I pop, I traveler hook a door, I keep walking in, I gate tool
Hmm.
something else, and I keep walking as far as I can until I get to whatever objective it is. And it's funny, we did one, it was a bank. Um, and I got in and I'm texting the guy. He's like, just see if you can get in. It's like, yeah, I can. What do you want us to do? He's like, just see if you can get in. Okay, cool, whatever. So I get in and I'm kind of wandering around and I'm like, oh, I'm in. Like, what do you want me to do? I just tailgated somebody. It was like,
Yeah.
was incredibly easy. Because we're in Oklahoma and you're in Texas. It's like everybody's polite here. It's like,
Yeah.
excuse me, ma'am. She holds the door open for me. Thank you. That's it. That was the social engineering.
As easy as it
Excuse
is
me,
right
ma'am.
there.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm walking around. He goes, we'll just see like if you can get in the server room. Walk into the server room, gap like half an inch maybe in the door, ridiculous gap. I'm like,
Yep.
okay, cool. Sparrow's card, cool. Open the door, walk in, send him a selfie. What now? He's like, see how long it takes you to notice somebody to notice you. And I just sat down at a desk and started working. And like I had meetings and stuff throughout the day, and I worked from this bank until 5 o'clock. And I was
Oh,
like, I was like, hey, nobody.
jeez,
I
man.
was raiding their break room. I was stealing people's drinks.
Oh man.
And
That's
I
it,
messaged
man.
him at
Like,
5, and I'm like, "Do you want me to stay after hours or what?"
yeah, dude. We see if I can just be friends with the security guard. You might let me stay here.
Yeah, he's like, "Just
Jeez.
leave." Just leave.
But yeah, that's interesting though. And I think that's one of the parts I enjoy most about the entry realm in general. Like something like that breaks down to even in the tactical realm, right? And that's the baseline, right? You walked in with a computer bag, a polo. Like that's the baseline for that place. It was enough. Like if you walked in looking like a homeless man, obviously alarms go off. If
Right.
you go in, so it's like that's essentially the baseline. You're like, okay, as long as you're dressed like semi-casual, no one's gonna notice you. You're another white dude with glasses that's walking into a bank. Like, oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's all. I think it's super interesting to me as far as the social engineering aspect.
And it kind of goes along with the gray man theory. I'm avid shooter, competition shooter, big dude in that whole area. So like then and you hear a lot about gray man stuff, and everybody talks, oh, I'm so gray man, and it's like, look, you all look like Grand Thumb, love Grand Thumb, but like you all look exactly like Grand Thumb, and like as somebody who's aware of that, like I you have Marcus Eric's leaf pants and a plaid shirt on that probably is good at covering a Glock 19. Like I'm aware,
Yeah,
it's the whole thing of like actually look like you belong and not try to
exactly.
look like gray man. I don't know. I think it's become its own thing. I get mildly triggered by that, and I'm
Yeah,
like, maybe
I
more
think
so.
I think that lends itself a little bit more to the ego part. Like people say they want to be gray man, but since there's no actual consequence to not blending in, it's easier to just kind of talk about it. Like the people that do the gray man stuff for real, like they get into character. It's a lot of times you don't have to because the threat to life isn't there. So it's like, well, it doesn't really matter. You can say you're gray man all fucking day, but there's nothing on the line. So yeah, you don't even know if you're really doing it right because there's no stakes. Like the moment where someone sees you
Yeah,
in the consequence of them spotting you is I'm throwing you in jail or I'm going to put you to death because I think you're a spy.
yeah.
Totally fucking different, and people will even start acting different as a result. So it's like,
You know,
well, yeah, it's too easy to talk about it because there's no consequence about it.
absolutely it is. And I will say on physicals, it feels much more real than it is also as the guy doing it. Like I know that I'm doing my job and I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And I have a letter that says I'm here. But like your brain's telling you like, oh shit, you're breaking into this place. If you get caught, you're fucked. Like that's still in your brain. And so
Yeah,
it's like you desperately do not want to get caught. More so than just like I want to be good at my job. It's like you feel it on a different level, right? It's like if I so I think putting yourself in that is also good for being objective at like what makes you stand out? Do you want to stand out? Sometimes you want to stand out, right? Like for example, in the HVAC scenario I gave you earlier, the guy who shows up at again, let's say a bank, the guy who shows up at some classy bank building wearing jeans and a Dickies work shirt, like he stands out. But
yeah,
sometimes that's good because you
that's
want
good.
that. It's your cover, right? I guess.
Right.
I guess that makes sense. Um, well, I wanted to ask you what. So I personally, I plan on at some point. I'm definitely gonna try and make it down to one of your classes. But what do you guys? Do you guys cover anything like that? Do you guys delve into like social engineering or OSINT, or do you guys strictly stay on like the physical control side of stuff?
So for the advanced side of the house, yeah, we kind of go into like the surveillance, the recon side, and really it's not like super duper in depth. But what we do is we put on scenarios where you have to apply the things that you learned in class. And the fun part about it is that it's in an uncontrolled environment. So that part is where it kind of gets it gets a little bit dangerous. So a lot of times we only do it in places where we know the police force, where we know we have people that can bail us out.
Okay. Okay.
Because it's like we're having people go out and they're going out in the real world to do these things. Like let's just say like so one common one we do is scenario starts, everyone has all their gear, they're ready to do the mission for the night. Ends up being a trap. We take all their stuff, we lock them up, we chain them up. They have to get out of their handcuffs. They
Okay.
have to find information on like a certain person. There's a whole fucking mission that spurs on from there. And it's like, all right, cool. Well, now we have to get all of our tools back. Your first thing is let's break out of this room. It's dark. I'm chained to a fucking table with 5 other people. Cool. How do I get out of this fucking room? So it's like, all right, cool. I found a bobby pin of some sort, and they fashion it into some way to open up your
Yeah.
handcuffs. It's up to
That'll pop
make
over
them
handcuffs.
exactly. So that's the fun. The fun part is like, all right, cool. I'm actively putting this to use. Let me see like how creative I can get with entry solutions, right? And then like getting on a computer and stuff like that. So it's like, all right, cool. Like how people this especially from your realm. People like to leave their passwords out, but they leave it out in different ways to their computers. So it might be underneath their computer. It might be on what it was called not RFID, NFC tag. So like me personally,
Oh
like
yeah.
I'll have an NFC tag, and they're like, oh shit, like they're looking around, they're like, where's the password, and then they happen to see a little black dot on the computer, and like, oh shit, and then they scan it, and then they're like, oh shit, all right, cool, got the password, and they log in, and then they get all the information they need for the rest of the scenario. And then from there, they're all hopping in a vehicle together and they're driving off, right? And they're doing stuff throughout the night. And so we have a friend that we work with in Wilmington, and he has his own private security, kind of like security guard force. So we'll actually enact like essentially if you fuck up, you incur real consequence. So
Right.
there's essentially like I don't want to say a mini jail, but there's like a room with like a cage and stuff in the back. And so we're like, if you get caught, like we throw you in this fucking this cell, you break out, you start mission all over again. So and then for the new town that we have down in Georgia, we actually know we can employ the actual the police force if they're like on an off day. So we're like, hey, yeah, just pay us this, and like, yeah, we'll actually throw them in the back of the vehicle and we'll throw them in jail.
So that sounds fun as shit.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, right? And so but obviously, like logistically, that's an extremely logistically dense portion of the course. And quite frankly, there has to be some kind of guide rails there to keep people from doing something that's crazy, because it has happened before. So like having the emergency numbers and stuff like that. So like in case someone gets in a car crash, or just something happens. So there's a lot of stuff that, like, with it coming with an uncontrolled environment, you get a lot of extra fun out of it, because you do what you think you need to do to complete this mission, but real world can happen to you. So it's like, well, like we got to make sure it still stays kind of safe for the students.
Yeah.
And then so for the advanced course as well, we do a lot of destructive entry too, with context applied. So there has to be very specific stuff. So if let's just say I do a recon on this building, and let's just say I have a bunch of locks with me, I might do what's called a pop and swap. So I'm like, all right, cool, I see this, it's not tagged with any serial numbers or anything, I might just cut the lock off and replace it with my own. It's the exact same make and model, roughly the same amount of wear and tear. Once again, people don't know about locks. So all they know is that they threw their key in, they turned it, it didn't work, I'm going to cut it off. So they're not like, oh, someone switched this lock on me, and now I can't, it never works that way. People don't give anywhere near that.
Entirely different lock. You could use an entirely different lock, and people would be like, shit, maintenance changed the lock.
Damn. All right. Yeah. So that's one thing we can employ. So if it's like, if you need to get it fucking quick, you know it, because you have all the information from your recon. That's now a known thing you have to deal with. You have time to deal with it, so you can go ahead and apply it appropriately if you can't get in the conventional way, or I won't say the conventional way, but the covert way. So we're only expanding that, right? So we're getting GPS units. So if they want to go ahead and tag a vehicle and then follow it that way, so they don't have to actually know where we're at, they'll have time to do all that stuff. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make it an experience, as well as applying some really fun skill.
I didn't realize that you guys got that in depth. I mean, I see, the how to pick locks, how to do the entry stuff. I see all that on your social media. I didn't know you guys were getting down like that. It's pretty awesome.
We kind of can't. It's one of those things where it's like, I would love to be able to post every single portion of the course.
Sure. Yeah.
It's kind of difficult, man, because it doesn't look good for certain crowd, like for certain people. They're like, ooh, why are you teaching that like that? So
how do you feel about teaching criminals?
I think criminals, I think the price is enough of a barrier to entry for criminals in general. Criminals do tried and true methods. They're not out here trying to learn new skills to do what they already do currently. So
I've never met somebody who is, popping locks with a screwdriver to be like, I'm gonna learn how to use an under the door tool. Although we do see under door tools popping up in like hotel entries and stuff like that. And there was a new one. I posted a video of on my LinkedIn actually. I got to branch out my social media. I know, but he made an under door tool out of magnets, basically.
Out of what?
Magnets. So he took big ass magnet. I recreated it. I'll send you a video later. He took a big ass neodymium magnet, and then a small magnet, glued the small magnet to a zip tie, tied a string to the zip tie, sticks the zip tie underneath the door, takes the magnet and attaches it to the magnet, walks it up to the door handle, hooks it on the door handle, pulls the string. That's an under the door tool you fit in your pocket. But that was found because a guy was breaking into a hotel room with it, and he had it. And somebody was in the room videoing. What the fuck is that?
That is interesting. Definitely send me that. I've made my own underdoor tools out of a couple other things. I made it out of like really thin copper piping. I did one with what was it? The bathroom snakes, the toilet snakes.
Oh yeah,
I made one out of that. Dude, I did some weird shit. Like I was all about gathering the data like last year, so I was just buying a bunch of shit. And I was like, what can I fashion an underdoor tool with? I even made one where it was like It was like 12 gauge wire inside the copper wire. So once I went under the door, I could just push the hook up and then pull down and drop right on top of the actual handle to pull down on it.
That's cool.
It was
You
interesting.
you should refine that and sell that.
I would love to, but it's yeah. If people can make it, I'm not about making a bunch of shit to sell people. Like I don't mind handing that stuff out for free personally. But it was
Well,
just
that's kind of our whole business model is like we just give out everything we know. Like
yeah.
we tell people how to do everything we know. And I mean, people still want you to do it. Like, I
Mm,
mean, people yeah, yeah. So I
yeah,
bet you if you made them, people would still buy them, even if you're like, here's the plans.
yeah. I love doing that stuff, man. It's easily it's one of my passions for sure. And if I could there aren't a lot of physical pen test jobs out there because that's so narrow, a field within the security realm. So if I could find one, that'd be dope because I get out of the army next year. So, but I don't know if the security realm is what I'm going to be able to even work in. Since I won't say I'm most current, but it's easier to get to jobs dealing with weapons and stuff because I that's what I've been doing my entire career, and now I'm like
Right.
I don't think it's super specialized in it, but I'm pretty specialized in weapons as well as covert entry. So, but the demand, I won't say the demand, but it's easier for me to get a job doing that than it is to find a job that will allow me to do physical pen testing. So,
Yeah, yeah. Shoot, I mean, I think what you're doing already is super cool. Hit me up when you get out, but
yeah,
I think I think what you're doing right now is super cool. That's why I want to chat about it. I mean, you're doing like stuff that we don't even necessarily get to do, where you're talking about like, throwing in cuffs and like, can you get out of the cuffs and get out of this
yeah.
room? And like, if I'm in
That's
cuffs, I'm going, here's my letter, officer. I'm sorry. Like,
that's the fun side, and I think that like that experience portion that people like to pay for, that fulfills that. So it's fun, and it's fun for us too because we get to watch how you go through making decisions throughout the night. And it's like, all right, cool. Is this person like, can they read? One, because reading is a good a good portion of it. Is like, can you read? Take these notes, and we notice that people don't take notes a lot. So like, if I'm doing something or I receive a brief or something like that, I take notes. You kind of have to, right? So that way you're not
yeah,
forgetting, remembering, or anything like that. And you can understand what the objective is. And a lot of people do not take notes. So, and that's what screws them up throughout the night. Is just like they either can't remember what was being said in the right way, or there's something they might. It happens every single time. And I'm like, dude, take notes. If you're being
yeah,
briefed, take your notes, and then that way you can always refer back to your notes to understand what like the portions of your objective that needed to be done, especially if they need to be done within a certain order. So we've only run the advanced course one time, but our 2-day course, you still get to run scenarios. The advanced course, so we only do 3 people for the advanced course because logistically it's super heavy. So once again, we go through a litany of destructive entry, right? And that goes from bolt cutters to the ram set to
yeah.
cutting,
Oh, you get to
the
teach Ramsay.
binders. Yeah,
Nice.
we do ram set and everything. So my big thing is we treat it like a big ass lab too. So I'm like, hey, bring in something that you think absolutely fucking works on entry, right? Because a lot of this shit's just theory. I mean, they're like, oh, it worked one time, and I'm like, well, that's not the way this works in this realm. You have to understand the threshold of what your tool actually does before you can really trust it to do to do a certain amount of tasks.
Sure.
Even as far as like what your locking mechanisms look like your dog leg locking mechanism versus your ball bearing. That's going to greatly affect if that ram set's actually going to work on it or not. So it's like, all right, well,
Yep.
cool. I'm like, and here's the thing: if it doesn't work, what's the pace plan, right? What's your alternate from there? Because if it didn't work that time, do I just go ahead and load up another shell, try another shot, or do I just go ahead, grab bolt cutters, pop it off, and then hopefully I have something to replace it with? So,
Right. Yeah.
so
That's a good point.
and then the forensics
Yeah,
part,
that's
right?
you
Like
guys
that
cover
part.
some forensic stuff as well.
So this we didn't last year. This year we're absolutely going to because we're gonna essentially
Okay.
have, if we can, I would like to have it even be like a competitive thing where we have maybe 2 teams, so maybe 4 people, and we have like 2 versus 2, where some people are actually actively looking for whatever forensic evidence was left behind, and see if they can actually like spot what evidence is left behind by the other team who's on the offensive side. I would love to see if that's actually doable.
I
So
need you to get you in touch with one of our guys, Andrew Peters. I think he's got his degree in overall like standard forensics, like you would typically do, like crime scene forensics type stuff. He does digital forensics primarily here, but he also helps out on physical pen tests.
nice.
He might be a good guy for you to talk to about.
Yeah, for sure.
That's kind of his thing. He would love to chat about that stuff.
I mean, I'll send you. Yeah, I'll send you some footage from last year too. Like we had the drones flying overhead while they were breaking into it. We were showing them what their signature looked like. So they're like, "Oh, I'll just use an angle grinder." I'm like, "Well, what does your signature look like at night?" Because obviously you have sound and then you have light discipline as well. So like, well, how much sound is it making? If you're in a city where the ambient noise is at a proper level, it won't matter. It's negligible. But the sounds or the light signature completely different. Like, so we had a cutting wheel that didn't have a guard, so it literally lit up like Christmas. It was the craziest shit. We had a camera that was pointing at it from 2 different angles, and you can see this light up. You're like, whoa, that's crazy. So it's like, well, that's a thing, man. Like if you're gonna use a cutting wheel, like understand what signatures you're giving off. So like light versus noise. Is this what I want to use right now? It's faster, sure, but you're now giving up something in return for that speed. So it's really a lot of just time management, noise and light discipline. But time management is obviously the biggest thing, right? And then being quiet, that's literally half of the job. Like if it's gonna be covert, that usually means not seen, not heard. You can go with being heard sometimes, but for the most part, you definitely shouldn't be seen. So
how do you feel about adding in not noticed into covert? Is that covert or not by definition? Seen but not noticed.
I would say it depends, because you can be seen and or you can be noticed and it not trigger anything. Like, how some people, their presence isn't very, like, it's not overwhelming enough to actually like keep in mind and remember.
Yeah.
No, some people are like that. Like you'd be like, did I meet this guy before? Like, and you're like, maybe you noticed them, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't stimulating enough for you to remember. So I guess if they don't remember you, you're technically still covert, I guess. By definition, no, it wouldn't be. But
yeah, I was kind of wondering about that, because I'm thinking the majority of the time, what customers are contracting us to do is, hey, we want you to test for people, right? It's do you want to test physical controls versus do you want to test people? And well, usually the answer is both, but they almost always want us to go in during business hours, see if people notice you during business hours. It's usually like red team engagements where it's more drawn out. We're hitting multiple facilities, targeting an entity for like espionage type stuff, like corporate espionage, rather than physically pen test a single building. So typically, if we're doing that, they want us to like focus on what are these guys going to do whenever you just walk in and say, I need in the data center? What are they going to do whenever you walk in and say, I need in the bank vault? Like, we've gotten in bank vaults by asking. There was one. There's only got in by asking. There's another one. The door was just. I've been at 3 bank vaults. One was asking. One, the door was left open, and then one there was a key box, right? And yes, it's a 2-key system. They're both in there, and you see a bank vault key where you're like, what the fuck is this key?
Yeah.
I mentioned vault. So,
but that's the cool, like, I like that. I like where you can put stuff in there like that. You're like, all right, cool. Here are your choices. You can pick the lock, which a lot of people are gonna. That's what when they have that new skill, it's novel. So now they're like, I'm gonna go to the lock picking. I'm like, no, don't do that. There's an easier way, and I was like that too. I'm not gonna lie. Like I was 100% like that when I first went. I was like, I'm gonna pick everything. And then now I'm like, you know what? No, there's an actual process to what skills I'm going to use all the way down to lockpicking, which is probably like the 5th thing I'll run into. But once again, if it's the 5th thing on the list, I want to make sure I am extremely well practiced and versed at it. So that way, if I do come down to it, I know I can get the fuck in because I have the data, I have the practice to get past this objective, right? So, Yeah, but I like that though. Like you're like, oh yeah, we have a key box here. So like I don't need to pick a lock because one, it makes me stand out. And then two, now I'm like, oh, I have the fucking key. You
A
know,
key
maybe the
gives you
key
authority.
a key gives you authority, and at the even at the worst, if I wanted to just take a picture of that key and recreate that key
Yeah.
at some point in time, I absolutely can do that. And that is actually not as difficult as people think it is, right? If I get a hold of a key for 5 seconds, take a quick picture of it, make sure it's nice and crisp, and then I'm going to go back. I have my, my picture apps. I can go ahead and throw an overlay over it so I can get the bidding,
Yep.
and then go ahead and just recut the key.
What do you use for cutting keys? Do you use like the hand nipper, or what do you guys use?
Oh yeah, dude, leashy cutters, man, because those fucking machines, dude, they are not cheap. So
I
I'm
know
using
they're
a
not.
four hand method.
Yeah. If I end up down there for a class, I'll bring the key cutter. I'll let you play with it. But like, man,
Yeah, I've
the
used the
hand
key cutter
cutters are
before.
hard. I'm so bad at them. I have been sure that I had a key right before on a physical and gone back out the next day to use it and it not work. Like
Ooh,
I,
no. So there's a couple of things with the key cutting, man. There's got to be some checks and balances, right? My biggest thing for checks and balances is going to be make sure the peaks are cut. And so peaks are like the sharp edges that stick up, and you obviously have your valleys, right? Right distance between the two, which isn't hard if you have spacing and depth keys. It almost guarantees you're going to get it right every
so
fucking
like
time.
the plastic guides that you put on, or
I don't even use plastic guides. I actually use literal keys. So they're actual keys that are cut with
oh, gotcha.
depth across the key. So basically, what I do is I line them up shoulder to shoulder. I clamp them together, and then I'll actually cut against the actual bitting of that
Gotcha.
of the spacing and depth key. That is the easiest way, in my opinion. If you want to check your work, obviously you have your gauge cards, and I'll actually throw that bitting in there and see if it fits
Yep.
for that cut. That's how I did it on the last mission that I did that on, and I was able to get a first time go on 2 keys. So 2 keys cutting in the dark under a red lens light, like, and it worked.
Yeah.
Both keys worked, and I was like, I told people I was like, hey, if you use these keys, and obviously you can get super duper close depending on what brand the key is. Quickset has a very large deviation in how badly you could fuck up on a cut. So
I believe
I
that.
had I had the math on it somewhere. I think it's in my key cutting fanny pack, but I had the actual like the acceptable deviation for like essentially how deep or how off the cut can be in depth and still work. So basically what happens is like the key will drag and it's super like hard to turn the key, but it does work. So if it works, dude, that's all I fucking need. So I'll take a pair of pliers and I'll turn that bitch.
I have
And
also seen somebody take a key that was not cut properly and jiggle, just use it like a
oh, yep,
jiggler, and
absolutely.
just like it's close enough.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. All I needed to do is work one time. So,
Yeah. Right.
yeah. So like even for my
That's
house
hilarious.
key, like my house key, like the key that I use for my door is a key that I cut.
Oh, same, same. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm like a
Yeah.
hand cut. It's not a great key cut. It is not my best work, but I'm like, oh, it works. So I'm like, that's fine.
I wanted to cover some methods. So one of the things that we do, we have actually quite a few things that we do that I haven't seen other people do. Because a lot of this stuff is stuff we figured out in the field, and we're not trying to hide the information, but it just hasn't like come up. One of the things is have you ran into people using pencils like to trigger doors to hold open? This is
Pencils.
something we
I don't
do
think
often. I'm gonna send you a video. Can I send a video for this one? All right. Actually, you know what? Let's see if this works out. It might be crap and we'll cut it out, but I'm going to show you the video on the screen. So basically, we take a number 2 pencil,
so. Uh-huh.
we set it in the crack of the door like that. This is obviously staged for the video, but we've
Yeah.
done this dozens of times. Let you go hide out in the bathroom for 30 minutes, let people go through
Oh
the door,
yeah. Yeah, that's smart.
drops
It'll
in.
drop right in.
Yep.
That's smart.
Yeah. So like that's become one of our most used methods. And the other thing is people never think about a pencil. Why is
Mm-mm.
there a pencil here? That's as far as it goes. It's not like some specialty tool. It's
Exactly.
and I've even got different size pens for if the gap's too big. Like it's
Dude, that's wicked smart, man. And that's no, I haven't seen that method used a lot at all, actually. And I'm like, damn, that's a good one. And obviously it depends on the environment. Like you guys get to work in different environments than I get to work in. So like I don't get to see certain type, like even then, like even for like rec sensors, right? The first time I've gotten to use a rec sensor in any capacity was actually earlier this year. Like I know the bypasses for a rec sensor. I know how to figure out if it's a Gen 1 or Gen 2, but I just physically don't have access to rec sensors often enough to really gather the data that I want on like what works, what doesn't work, why it doesn't work, so on and so forth. And obviously, like rec sensors have been out forever. So and so I the last time I used it, I was showing it to a fire department. And I was like, all right, well, I have to find out if it's Gen 1 or Gen 2. So I stuck an under door tool in front of the sensor, waved it around, see if it was just gonna be looking for obviously just for movement. Nothing. So I was like, okay, probably a Gen 2. And so I was like, do we have any like some dude had a vape and another dude had and we found the spray can duster. We found that too. And so we were like, oh dope. So let's try it out. Worked. So I was like, okay, cool. So this is Gen 2.
Almost every one of them that I run into is like 90%, maybe more. Yeah. Like almost, I've ran into motion sensors, like the ones that are triggered by motion, maybe twice. And I think it was two methods. One method was we scotch taped a manila folder to an under door tool and just kind of wiggled it around under there. And the other one was balloons, which we've had the balloons in our go bag forever for that reason, and never ran into them. And then finally it was like, oh hell yeah, we have to use a balloon. Which is the dumbest thing ever, but it works.
Yeah, it works. And it's I think that's what I love about this skill in general. It's active problem solving all the time. It's always problem solving. And so I think that's usually my most favorite part about it is that I'm like, I can have no tools on my person. I can go walk down the street or in a dumpster or a trash can and come out with a piece of trash that I know I can bypass something, my way into a fucking bank or some shit like that. And I'm like, what? Like, we went to, I think it wasn't Evergreen. It was, I can't remember what fire department it was, but they were really, they had a lot of faith in their doors. They were like, we have all these simplex locks. Like they had a bunch of simplex locks. So obviously the first thing I did when I went up to it, I opened up my app, looked at the default code for a bunch of the locks. I was just like, let's see if you guys change the default codes. Like very first thing I tried. No. They were good. They changed the default codes.
Oh, that's good.
I'm surprised like, you guys, man. And so after that, and I'm looking at the latches and I'm just like, yeah, that's enough space. I was like, I had to have something a little bit thinner. So basically all I did was I just like pulled a shoestring and dropped it behind the latch. And I was like, you guys want to see me bypass this with a shoestring? And there's like, no fucking way. I'm like,
oh yeah,
he's observe. Just dropped it behind there, fed it through, put my knee on the door to force it in just a little bit, straightened it out, pulled the door handle out, and they're like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah.
We have a tradition at our office of if you can't get into the door, figure it the fuck out. Like if you leave your badge, like figure out how to get in, buddy.
Yeah.
It's like some improvised stuff. So I got really good at opening doors with trash. I pulled the thing off of some blinds one time, like a string off of blinds. Same thing, exact same thing. Just feed it through, pull it, hit the latch with it, work. I've used a piece of like a drawer slide on a desk. One of the sides was broken; it had fallen off. I opened the drawer and I saw that, and I was like, "That'll open the door." And that's
I think one I was testing up pretty recently was like the handle that come with the paint rollers. I used one of those for a DDT.
Oh, that's genius.
Yeah.
Oh, I was like, God, that's a great idea.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, that's perfect. So I usually carry a small little mini crowbar with me so I can gap.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
And then I was like, all right, cool, gap, slide on the inside, turn it, pull, and I was like, there we go.
Big believer in airbags. Air wedges. So I have used a couple of reasons that you might not have thought of that I've switched to using those almost exclusively over a crowbar. Even the miniature pry bars will get you yelled at TSA.
Yeah, that's true.
Even if it's like, dude, so many times I've had my bag pulled. I only travel to carry on. I don't take a check bag unless I have to. So it's like, I walk in with my backpack and I throw it through and they scan it and they go, oh, looks like we got a crowbar in here. I'm like, yep, it is. It should be good. It's under, it's 5 inches. It's regular. It should be fine. And they pull it out and they look at it and they go, oh, yep, it's a crowbar. Put it back and let me go. I'm like, thanks for wasting fucking 30 minutes of my time. There's my flight. So I fly a ton, and that's one of the main reasons. The other reason is it bars up doors, and the airbags don't bar up doors near as bad. And I'm working on customers who are paying us to be there, and it's like, so
Yeah.
So sometimes they carry, sometimes they don't. So I still have a small crowbar, like a very small one, but like my 4-inch one that I really, really liked, because that was like perfect for that. Most of the people started getting on me about that, and I just said, "Fuck it." I took it out of my travel kit. We have them in our bigger bags, but like it's air wedges for me. Also, another tool or another use that I found. I can send you a video later. Can't show it here, but I can send you a video later. There is a method we found for mag locks. Almost every mag lock that I found, except for one, I've been able to overcome with 3 air wedges.
Oh, I mean,
Feed them through the door.
You
get them.
Yep.
Get them closer and closer to the magnet.
The opening force every single time you use one. So you're essentially just stacking opening weight or opening force with the airbags. That makes sense.
Yeah, you just get them. You get them as close to the magnet as you can. Push them as far back behind the door where they're pushing out, and where as you can, and then just yank, and that door will open. Almost every time. I've done it dozens of times. Like it will open.
Because you can get the contractor ones too. Because I know the standard ones you buy from like Home Depot, Lowe's are 300 pounds, but you can get the contractor ones that are 500 pounds of opening force, and probably less. So no, that makes sense. So we have
3 sizes. So.
You have 3 sizes. Yeah. Okay. I'm sure you probably got something from like car opening kits and stuff like that too. I'd imagine the smaller ones.
Yeah, I think the small one, that's the same one you typically use for a car, like wedging open the car window or door. And then there's a medium size, and there's a really long one that's like 600 pounds.
Yep. So the only reason I won't say I prefer the mini crowbar over, it depends on what door and frame I'm looking at. So I break down that pretty heavily. So if I'm doing steel door, steel frame, I will not use an air wedge. So the reason I found that ends up being the issue, and I worked this out with some former students of mine too. Like I'll take some guys that have been to the course before. We'll just go out and we'll like learn some shit. The biggest thing I saw is that he was trying to do, and this latch, you can see this latch from a fucking mile away. I'll send you this too. And as he's using the air wedge, essentially, you realize we can't put an entire air wedge to the other side of the door to get that opening force. Portion of
not unless you have multiple air wedges, you got to stagger. Yeah.
Sure. So by doing that, essentially what was happening is that when the air wedge is getting pumped up and wrapping around the door, it was also causing forward pressure that was binding the latch, the strike plate. And so now you're also fighting 300 pounds of force moving forward as well. Yeah. And that's what was causing the issues. So it was easier for me to use. And I used really specific crowbars that don't kind of have that like weird angle on them. It's very straight. So basically what I'm looking for, I'm not looking for forward or backwards movement as I'm applying that downward or upwards, tensioning force. I'm looking for the door to move and rock back and forth to the whatever side has the most space, so below or above the door. And so when I get that, that's perfect. And I'm like, all right, cool. That's enough for me to get that way, or that strike right outside or that latch outside the strike plate, just enough to disengage that dead latch plunger, and then I can just avoid the door like a normal door.
Yeah. No, I'm with you there. It's interesting though. You said metal ones. I hadn't really thought about it as like which ones are better to use, but no, I have encountered that before, where it can make it easier or harder depending on how you do it. Usually, I'll get if I'm just trying to create gap to like load a latch, like travel hook the door or whatever. I will try and get it above and below a latch. Do 2 of them, and just as minimum as I can. Just pump, try it, pump, try it, and just keep going. So. But yeah, I think multiple of them is almost always the key for me at least. But
I'll have to try that out. I usually just use like 1, or at worst I'll use 2 if I'm trying to, because obviously there's threshold on the bottom. So if there's a threshold there, it's damn near impossible to use an underdoor tool unless you have a way to create space underneath the door. So that's another way I've used it as well. So I've used the air wedge to pump the door and move the door up, so that way I can get some space underneath the door past the threshold for the inner door tool.
We have these little ABS plastic wedges, and those are pretty good as well, where you can kind of just kick them underneath the door to get a little bit of space.
Yeah.
And those are pretty cool. I think they might actually be door stops, but they're not like rubber coated. They're just a plastic wedge. And those are pretty solid for that. They're not perfect by any means, but they can help. And again, you can also stick those in like cracks to keep doors open. I think that's like a fire department thing you're probably worried about.
Well, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's super interesting, man, especially when I think it's this year I've been trying to kind of get more on the cyber side just to round myself out as far as like the entry stuff goes. Obviously mess around with like I don't consider the flipper is not hacking. I refuse to call it that. It's absolutely not hacking. People are like, I'm a hacker now. I'm like, no, it's not.
It's a useful tool for me. I use it. Sure. It's not, but the thing is, what the flipper did for me is it simplified a lot of shit I was already doing.
Yes. Like cloning creds, probably it's super easy to clone creds. I've done that before a couple of times and gotten into high security facilities and I'm like, all right, cool. That's super easy. I literally just find the right card that has the right credentials and you get into more places than other ones. So, especially places that do security right, which means it should be compartmentalized and not everybody has access to everything. So,
or brute forcing cards as well is something that's easy from the flipper.
I haven't been able to do the brute forcing yet.
Yeah, you can, depending on the firmware you have, you can brute force the cards, and it's something because a lot of people use default values in the cards, and so it starts at the very bottom of the numerical value of the cards. And so if you start brute forcing from the bottom, usually within your first 10, it's going to open a door, unless they assign their values right. But for the most part, yeah, it's pretty easy. Brute forcing should not work as well as it does for doors. It should not.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. We're probably going to break this up into 2 episodes. Our conversation got a little too fun, so we're gonna keep it rolling. So you'll have to wait until the next one to find out what happens after this. So thank you guys for tuning in to Secure After Dark, and we'll see you next time.